What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the office. Beautiful early fall day here in Central Oregon. A little smoky, got some fires going, but otherwise, nice day. Kind of makes you appreciate the change of the seasons. We're out of the super hot summer, cooling down. So a little bit of a bummer because I can't ride my scooter. Well, I can, but it's just cold in the mornings. So I'm back to driving the truck every day. But been a little bit since the last podcast. Very busy around here. There's just a lot going on. If you follow me on the social medias, you've hopefully seen some posts from me talking about the current state of the business and what's happening around here. And, I hate to, hate being one of those guys that just complains about stuff all the time or whatever. But I'm just putting it out there, I'm not hiring any more employees. I have one helper / tech. His name's Ty. Been here for about a year, almost a year now. Good hand, good kid, works hard, learns, understands mechanics. He's a good hand. I'm trying hard to keep him. And then, of course, I have Josie. She will probably always be around. So, but I'm not hiring anybody else. There's, the taxes are killing me, the fees, everything that goes along with having an employee, just compounds. The economy is downturned some the last year and a half, 2 years, and I'm not making, quite as much as I used to on part sales and other income streams that would help offset any loss that I have in the restoration side. Because believe it or not, it's very hard to make money doing restoration and repair work on these old trucks because everything's rusty, everything's broken, everything is a mess. You're dealing with 60 years of somebody else's shenanigans, and it's really hard to bill out actual hours. And I've said it for years, if you build out the actual hours you had into restoration or whatever the job is, every scout we built would be $1 million. It's hard, and you can see it in other shops that have super high turnover. You watch some of these other builders where they're doing a job in 4 months. And that's the only way you can make money at it. And even then, you're breaking your neck to make those timelines and to turn that stuff around. It's hard. If you don't believe me, ask any of them next time you see them, hey, how's your vacation going? And they will laugh in your face. So that's why we're shifting the business into part sales, because that can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, we have a lot of inventory, that's already pulled and, ready to go. So, that's where we're shifting to. So when we finally finish all of the outstanding jobs, which we have a lot of still, we will not be taking on any more customer work. It'll all be personal builds that I will build and then sell, or auction or whatever it is. But I have some friends that do, it takes 2 years for them to build a Barrett Jackson or Mecum quality truck that they go and they sell for, $150,000. And then, 2 years, do it again. And that's probably where I'm going to go Um, I'm limited, and my builds are limited by customer budget and customer vision. Believe it or not, some of these customers have crazy ideas, and I say yes to some of them and no to some of them. And, sometimes the trucks come out great. Sometimes there's things that I'm not a fan of. But anyway, I just want to get to where I'm not getting yelled at every day by customers that are mad, and also not sweating the bills because it's it costs a lot of money to run this business. So anyway, so that's what's happening in the background here. I've actually stepped away from social media. My personal Facebook page I still use occasionally, and I'm still sort of active on the IH pages on Facebook, mostly just to sell parts and help continue to promote the business. But I've shut my Instagram down. I'm kind of stepping away. Just for, I don't know how long, but I need to get away from the negativity that is the internet. There's a lot of people that like to talk trash and, hide behind the screen and private accounts and screen names and stuff like that. And, it wears on me. It's been, I've been on Instagram since 2009. So, to see the decay of society in real time is really disheartening. Instagram used to be an awesome place to see great pictures and learn something and, be almost part of a community. And now it's just kind of degraded into, whose side are you on? And if you're not on our side, well, then you can die. And so I'm over it. But I may come back in some capacity sometime. But for now, I'm stepping away from the socials. So if you do want to reach out, the shop number, email, that kind of thing. We're kind of going back a few years. A little more old school. I'm not telling you to write a letter, but yeah, it's just more phone call or email, that and not being bombarded by messages on those platforms also helps get more stuff done. When I'm not constantly having to respond to tech support questions or people asking me stuff that, call the place that you bought the part from and ask them how to install it. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone buys something from scoutparts.com and then they call me and they're like, hey, how do I put this together? It's like, I don't have time to help you out with this. Or when a guy says, hey, can my shop call you because they can't figure out this problem with my Scout? And I'm like, well, maybe you have it at the wrong shop. And yeah, my shop rate's 100 an hour. So I'm going to bill out whatever time I take with your guys. So yeah, I'm getting away from that. I've got so much work here, and so many things I want to do that, I'm just trying to cut distraction and time out of the way. And it's already helped. I mean, I've only been off today. I'm recording this on the 13th. I've only been off Instagram for 2 days, and already I've noticed an increase in stuff I'm getting done and less, interaction with the public, and that's helpful. So I know a lot of you will miss me or miss my posts if you follow me there, but I'm not gone forever. So that leads me to what I wanted to talk about today. Long rambling way to get there, but projects. I, for my sanity, have been working on something of my own in the evenings and after hours, weekends, stuff like that. And I know I have a ton of customer work, but I can't just work on customer work forever. I got to have my own outlet. So I've been working on this little Scout 80 for most of the summer. It came in on a trade deal. I did some work for a guy on his Scout, and he gave me this 80 because honestly, when you look at it, or when you looked at it in the state that it was in, it was pretty rough. And so this guy I think he thought he was getting a deal. But, it was somebody else's project. They had, torched the door hinges off. The motor was super greasy. The rear end was a Dana 44, but somebody lost the nuts that hold the axle flanges on. So there was just hose clamps on the ends of the axle shafts to keep the hubs on so you could roll it around. Things like that. So, a cursory once over, it was pretty rough. But what I did was pulled it out, cleaned it out. That's step number one. Got rid of all of the bracketry and, extra gauges that they had hole sawed into the firewall and all this dumb stuff that people do to early Scouts. And, clean the motor up, kind of got a look at it once I cleaned it off and realized that it was a pretty decent little rig. Somebody had tried to reseal the motor, and I think they did it all like homemade, because they use cork gasket, but it's like a cork, like the kind you buy at Napa in a roll. And then they use blue silicone. So there's blue RTV everywhere. But the internals of the motor were actually really clean. The oil pan didn't have any metal chunks in it, had good compression, all that sort of stuff. But because of however this person sealed it up, it just leaked everywhere. So everything was super greasy, but it wasn't the old school, like 60 years of grease. Like whoever did this work cleaned it and then put it back together, and then it immediately started leaking again and got greasy. And I think it probably discouraged them some. So when I took it apart, I ran it through the parts washer, and one pass through the washer, everything was clean again, which is rare. Normally these old motors, you got to wash them before they, those 40 years of grease and grit melt off of it. So, so underneath all of that was actually a Scout that had been taken care of. So, but this project it's about updating. I'm kind of building like a retro, like it's a 6280, but I'm building it as if it was the 70s. So like I have a Scout 800 4-speed. I have a Scout 800 twin stick Dana 20. I have 73 Scout 2 11-inch drum brakes on the front. I'm using a Scout 2 drum brake master cylinder, an off-the-shelf lift kit that you could have got through ORD or Tough Terrain or something. Just basic builds. But the point I'm getting at here is with some of these projects, when guys drag stuff home and it's daunting, you look at it and you're like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare, or this thing's a hunk of crap. I don't know why I bought it, or you bought it for $500 because you thought it was a hunk of crap. And then you clean it, you get into it, and you realize, hey, this thing got parked because of a wiring problem or a wheel bearing problem or, broken drive shaft. And turns out motor's not bad. Transmission's not bad. A couple of parts changes and you got a great rig again. So I guess what I'm saying is don't judge a book by its cover necessarily. Like, yeah, I have gotten some in that I'm like, oh, this could be good. And there's a hole in the piston or the bottom end had a terrible knock. If you go back to our YouTube channel, years and years ago, we nursed a Travelall, C-Series Travelall back to life, and it had a terrible knock. And the guy I got it from was like, oh, just ran when parked. And, it obviously didn't. They parked it because it had a awful engine noise. So I didn't get lucky there. I still sold the truck and made money on it because the body was excellent, but it needed a motor. So don't judge a book by its cover. Take some time, do some, investigatory journalism, do a compression test, check the oil and the coolant, make sure, if it's got good clues that it could be a good setup, then pursue it. And just like I've talked about in the past, clean, prep, check stuff out. A lot of times it doesn't require a lot of expensive parts. Sometimes, a whole engine gasket kit for an international V8 is like $140. So, and that's every gasket you need. So you can do, a Krylon rebuild and for less than $200. It's just all labor. So, things like that where it's possible, you want to give it a fighting chance, so to speak. And how do I say it? You just don't want to give up on it because it's, because it's dirty or because it was parked or because it's rusty. I've got guys that are like, oh, I can't drive this because it's got a rust hole in the floor, the size of a coffee can. And it's like, bro, like get some sheet metal screws, screw a piece of flashing over it, get a rubber floor mat from AutoZone and drive the thing. It runs good. It drives good. It just has rust. Like, don't let that deter you unless it's dangerous. If like the doors fall off every time you open it or the top is going to blow off, then of course don't risk life and limb. But, if it's just cosmetic, your Travelall has rusted out wheel wells or, the bed rails on your Scout are rusty or the windshield frame has some holes in it, but mechanically it's a good runner and driver. Like just drive it, just use it. Don't let that discourage you. And so, like I said, don't judge that book by its cover. Just give it a chance. And, like I said, this little Scout, I got into it very skeptical. I'm like, oh, this thing got parked for some weird reason. Turns out, from as far as I can tell, the reason it got parked was because of a wheel bearing problem. It's got a tapered shaft Dana 44 out of an 800. And when I pulled the wheels off, it was missing a brake drum on one side. It was missing the key because it's a keyway, 2-piece shaft. And it was missing both of the axle nuts. So, somebody was in there trying to do something with the brakes or the bearings, and I believe that's what got it parked. And then the parts got lost, and who knows what. So I put the rear end back together, and it's I'm probably going to swing the motor in next week because I pulled the motor out. I'm putting the 4-speed on it, and to do that, you have to take the motor out, put the bell housing on, and then put it back in, then put the transmission in. It's kind of a multi-step process. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be a good rig when it's done. Like I said, updating it, and it deserves it. It's not very rusty. The door hinges got torched off, so I'm going to have to figure out how to put doors back on it. But, overall, for what I have into it, it's worth it. And then on the other side of that coin, don't overspend on a project that you think you're not going to have to work on, because, I guarantee you there's always going to be work to be done. And so don't think you're shortcutting your labor by buying something that's farther ahead, unless it's body work. If you have a super rusty Scout and you find a non-running Scout that has a way better body and you just want to steal that body, I get it. That's, totally understandable. But, if you're buying a nice truck because you think, oh, I'm not going to have to do wheel bearings or the brakes are good. No, I've bought trucks that, went down the road nice and a month later needed brakes. It just, some of that comes down to research and doing your homework ahead of time before you buy stuff. But I'm just saying, sometimes these projects you can get a good deal on, you have to do stuff you were going to have to do anyways on no matter what truck you bought. Like I said, tune up, wheel bearings, brakes, gear train service, drive shaft, whatever. That sort of stuff happens across the board, no matter what. So don't think that just because you're buying one that looks nice that you're getting out of having to do a bunch of other work. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just, put some time in. They can be great, with just a little bit of elbow grease and a couple dollars in parts, a few cans of brake clean. And it's amazing what they can come back into, because especially if you don't know the story, if you're the second owner and the old guy you got it from told you everything about it, that's different. But I have a feeling the Scout that I ended up with has been through about 9 different people, and it shows in all the different wiring hacks and different fixes and different things and stuff. So, just, how do I say it? Just put in the time, get yourself the manual, clean, check it out, and go from there. And you probably end up with a pretty decent truck. And, at some point when you go to sell it, if you do sell it, you'll have a detailed list of everything you've done, and it becomes that much better of a sale truck because you can prove to the next person, hey, I did do this. It does have this, and then it does actually carry some value versus the old guy that's like, yeah, I think we did the brakes 20 years ago. And, you don't know what's actually been done. So anyway, I think that's it for today. I'll hang it up. I got a lot of work to do. So I appreciate you guys. Love you very much. Thank you for all the donations and continued support. And until next time, I am Dan from Binder Boneyard.